people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest word from World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman. The WBC Board of Governors unanimously voted in favor of appointing Katie Taylor as WBC Emeritus Champion. We wish our proud champion great success in the future, and she may return to the ring in case she decides to do so to continue representing the green belt. Hashtag I love my green belt. In other words, that's just a fanciful way of saying that Katie Taylor no longer holds the WBC world title at 140 pounds, but as soon as she wants to fight for it, she can. That would make Chantel Cameron, the interim champion, the full champion now. The byproduct of the WBC ordering that fight between them, but Katie Taylor wanting to take some time away, take some time off. We don't know if she's going to retire. We don't know that she isn't. What we do know is she's going to do things on her own time at this point, and not the World Boxing Council's. So now, Chantel is full WBC champion at 140 pounds, but there's a catch.
There's a caveat.
The World Boxing Council will now order Chantel Cameron, newly crowned WBC champion, to satisfy her mandatory challenger, Sandy Ryan. I want to start off by saying that this is a fight that could have theoretically happened a long time ago when both Chantel and Sandy were on the same side of the street, when they were both at Matchroom. I always got the impression that Chantel never really fancied that fight, that to Chantel, it seemed like more trouble than it's worth. Chantel is the more accomplished fighter of the two. Don't forget that she used to be undisputed at this weight, and now she's a two-time super lightweight champion. She's got her WBC title back. And in many ways, she has the better resume of the two. She has a better resume and better career accolades than Sandy Ryan. But that doesn't mean that Sandy's not a threat. You hear me say it all the time. There's more to boxing than what you see on paper. On paper, Chantel is the more experienced fighter and the more accomplished fighter, but that doesn't mean that Sandy's not a threat to her. She very much is. Sandy was in action not that long ago. She got herself back in the winner's bracket, rebounding off her second loss to Michaela Mayer with a win over then unbeaten Jade Grierson. She handled her easily. She thoroughly outclassed Jade Grierson, and now she's got another shot at becoming a champion at another weight. Sandy reigned as WBO champion at 147. This fight would take place at 140. If Sandy wins, she becomes a two-weight world champion. Sandy's last fight was said to have been her final fight under her existing Matchroom deal. Industry rumors suggest that she may have already held talks to cross over to MVP, Chantel Cameron. She already crossed over to MVP. She was one of their many, many recent signings. I don't think this is the outcome that Chantel wanted. I think the only reason Chantel fought for a WBC interim title was to use it as a segue to fight Katie again. And now, I don't imagine she's very happy. You know, after she lost the second Katie Taylor fight and saw that she wasn't going to get an immediate rematch, she could have moved up. She could have went to welter. She stayed there for over a year, chasing that Katie Taylor trilogy. So I don't imagine that instead of fighting Katie, she's happy to fight Sandy. To Chantel, that is not an adequate substitute. But if she wants to stay WBC champion, she has to. So this is one of those rare instances where the World Boxing Council actually did something that's good for boxing. A rare instance where they actually did their job. And I do not imagine that Chantel is happy about it. But she is painted into a corner. Are you gonna vacate that title so you don't have to fight Sandy? Imagine what people would say. There are very few impediments to making this fight a reality. Whether Sandy is with Matchroom or she's not, I don't imagine they're going to be a problem. MVP promotes Chantel. They have more than enough money and more than enough fight dates to make the fight a reality. The only question is Chantel Cameron going to go through with it? A Chantel Cameron versus Sandy Ryan fight, irrespective of who you think wins, has Fight of the Year written all over it. Chantel Cameron is known for having a mean streak once the opening bell sounds, and so does Sandy Ryan. Except that Sandy is bigger, noticeably taller, longer. More often than not, Chantel Cameron is the one with all the size in a fight. This is going to be a rare instance where Chantel isn't the bigger girl. Now, how well can Sandy Ryan get down to 140? I mean, she's pretty tall and pretty long, but she is also pretty lean. I think she can get there. This is not what Chantel Cameron wanted. But she's put in a position where she is forced to respond and forced to comply with this order or surrender the WBC title. And I don't think she wants to have to do that either. You know, I think MVP is probably already working on this fight. The conversations are already underway. All we need is an official announcement. In men's super lightweight news, Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson is making strides as a Turkey LL Sheik-backed PBC event. PBC? What the hell does he need from the PBC? Representatives connected to the talks to stage Lopez versus Stevenson showdown in early 2026 are bullish on the progress for a bout being pointed for New York. The meeting between Brooklyn's two-division champion Lopez, 22-1 with 13 knockouts, and Newark, New Jersey's three-division champion Shakur Stevenson, 24-0 with 11 KOs, is currently being planned as a PBC card that would receive the financial support of Saudi Arabian boxing financier Turkey LL Sheik. Two sources who've been briefed on the talks told Boxing Scene. WBO 140-pound champion Lopez, WBC lightweight champion Stevenson, both 28, spoke of their mutual excitement for the bout while attending this past weekend's Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez fight. I'm still not seeing why Turkey would need to involve the PBC for this engagement. He can pay to make it all on his own. The bout would be for Lopez's WBO 140-pound title. Lopez told Boxing Scene he expects more details on the negotiations to be forthcoming soon. Stevenson would pursue a 4th division belt in meeting his former top-ranked stablemate. He publicly expressed interest in the fight in the aftermath of close friend Terence Bud Crawford's historic triumph over undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez this past Saturday at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Lopez and Stevenson are now both promotional free agents, with Lopez interested in fighting under the PBC banner. PBC is pressing to stage a steady delivery of pay-per-view cards. In October, powerful manager Al Heyman's company will distribute a card headlined by the WBC junior middleweight champion Sebastian Fundora and his fight versus former unified welterweight champion Keith Thurman on Prime Video and pay-per-view.com. Manny Pacquiao may return for a December pay-per-view, with WBA welterweight champion Rolly Romero considered the frontrunner for that fight. Opening 2026 with a pay-per-view headlined by two of America's top champions at their peak would be a boon for the PBC. Do you see that everything the PBC has in store for their supporters, their fans, is hidden behind a paywall? Thurman versus Fundora, Pacquiao versus Romero, even this. While LL Sheik is funding the new TKO boxing promotion that staged Crawford versus Canelo Saturday, with plans for lower-level fights and some more major cards in the coming year, the Saudi financier has previously backed cards featuring Stevenson and Lopez. Stevenson is coming off of an impressive July dismissal of former top-ranked contender William Zepeda in Queens, New York. The event came more than 2 months after Lopez successfully defended his WBO title by cruising to a UD win over then-unbeaten Arnold Barboza in May 2nd in Times Square. Given PBC's usual placement of New York fights at Brooklyn's Barclays Center, that venue is seen as the favorite to land the bout. Stevenson's camp may express a preference for MSG to take the bout out of Lopez's hometown, but you never really know until you know, and Teofimo's more of a Floridian than a Brooklynite. I still don't understand why they need to involve the PBC for this engagement. Is Turkey using them as a sort of gopher, a point man, since they're doing a fight in New York and he doesn't want a repeat of what happened in Times Square? Is that why? It very well could be. The PBC over the years has done a good number of shows in the tri-state area at the Barclays Center, what was once their unofficial home for many of their fights. That could be the rhyme and reason why they're involved, in tandem with what fighters they can make available. There have been recent talks about WBA champion Gary Antoine Russell fighting in a unification match in what is his very next fight. If Teofimo Lopez is fighting Shakur Stevenson and Subriel Matias is fighting Dalton Smith, that would leave only Richardson Hitchens available for Gary to unify with. Now, Richardson Hitchens actually is a Brooklynite. He's from Brooklyn, more than Teofimo, so you figure that if they're working on that fight between Richardson Hitchens and Gary Antoine Russell behind the scenes, the ideal placement for that unification match would be on this undercard. Could turn out to be a hell of a card. If you're still wondering, why would Turki El Sheikh need to involve the PBC for a Stevenson versus Lopez fight when they're both free agents? The short answer is their experience doing shows in the tri-state area, as they have some experience in that region, one or some fighters that they might make available for said show, and he's already worked with everybody else. He's worked with Matchroom, he's worked with Golden Boy, he's worked with Top Rank, Queensbury, Boxer. All that's left is for the PBC to kiss the rings, but therein lies the irony. It's been that vocal PBC faction of fans, what I like to call the Haymanites, that have railed against Turki El Sheikh's presence in the sport, downplayed everything he's done and what he's been trying to do for the sport so far. It's been them, more than anybody, that have stood against Turki El Sheikh. So that now, if the PBC is jumping into bed with that same Turki El Sheikh, a lot of those Haymanites are going to have to get their narratives in order. If what they're basically doing is bending the knee. And that's been obvious for some time. I mean, David Morrell has boxed on 2 of Turki's shows. David Benavidez is about to. They're bending the knee. After so many idiots online quoted so many cliches you've already heard a million times, all money ain't good money. Remember, they were mad. They were actually mad at Turki El Sheikh because he wanted to make a fight between Javante and Devin. The entire time that Turki has been trying to make waves in the sport of boxing, putting together the very best fights possible, it's been the Haymanites, more than anybody, resisting him and rallying against him, while the PBC is doing what's best for them, and what's best for them is partnering with Turki, since he's the only one with the kind of money that can accommodate all of their fighters. By now it's obvious that more than a year into their Amazon deal, they are not getting on Amazon what they were getting on Fox and what they were getting on Showtime. They're not getting an annual budget that would allow them to do anywhere near as many shows as they used to. I remember at one point, they were doing upwards of 34 or 36 shows across 2 platforms, whereas now, they're down to about 5 or 6, if they're lucky, and most of them are pay-per-views. Annually. Talk about a steep decline. From about 36 shows annually to just 5 or 6. Now they want to build this Lopez versus Stevenson fight as a pay-per-view, as the main event, and I don't know what that's going to do at the box office. I like Shakur Stevenson, but I don't know that he can move units in Teofimo. He's got no record of doing that either. He never graduated from the Hulu Theater to the big room at MSG. Teofimo is not that big a draw. There is a credible argument that Shakur is a bigger draw than he is, but neither of them have ever headlined a pay-per-view. So I don't really know what this is going to do in this very unstable box office market where piracy is at an all-time high and boxing fans don't want to pay through the nose to see a boxing match. Over to what I believe is a connected story in connection with what could be Stevenson versus Lopez in association with the PBC. Unified middleweight champion Janibek Elimkanalai has been releasing cryptic tweet after cryptic tweet saying next week a long-anticipated announcement will shake up the boxing world.
Now that particular description of what is coming narrows the field of options. It could be a Lara fight, but a Lara fight is not a long-anticipated fight. A Carlos Adames fight, on the other hand.
That one is. By now it's not a secret that some effort has already gone into getting Carlos in the ring with Janibek. Turkey wanted to pay for it, Turkey wanted to do it, but he wanted to do it in Saudi. Carlos was not on board for that.
But he had some aversion to going back to Saudi for that fight after what happened in the Shiraz fight that he thinks he should have won. Instead, all he got was a draw.
I believe that we are on the eve of a Janibek versus Adames announcement. I believe that it's still Turkey paying for it. He's still the one that's going to do it, with the difference being it's not going to be in Saudi. I believe that this fight could land on the undercard of Stevenson versus Lopez.
It makes too much sense.
What the hell else could Janibek Alimkhanalai be talking about? Something that's been long anticipated. What's been long anticipated? His fight with Carlos Adames. And what might have made all the difference for Carlos is you can have that fight, but it'll be on your side of the street, under your promotional banner, not his and not Turkey's.
It'll be on the PBC.
Now, do I still favor Janibek Alimkhanalai to win this fight? Believe it or not, I still do. In spite of it potentially happening under the PBC banner with the PBC's judges and their penchant for wild shenanigans, I still think Janibek wins because I think he'll take it out of the judges' hands.
Their dodgy scorecards won't matter because I think he knocks out Carlos.
Something you might want to consider. If this fight ends up happening early next year, it may have been roughly a year or close to it from Carlos's last fight. Carlos's fight with Hamza Shiraz was all the way back there in February of this year, where Janibek saw action a little bit more recently in April, to where if they end up fighting each other in either January or February, Carlos will have been out a while.
And have you been seeing Carlos lately? He's been looking big, pretty heavy. He's gonna have to cut a lot of weight to get back down to 160.
I maintain my original position that, in terms of X's and O's, I believe that Carlos Adames is a more dynamic and streamlined fighter than Janibek Alimkhanalai. I believe that Carlos is a bit more stylish, whereas Janibek can be robotic and monotonous, throwing the same combinations over and over, trying for the same punches. But if I favor Janibek to win,
it's because I believe he's a better physical specimen. It's because I believe he takes a better punch and gives a better punch. It's because I think he will knock out Carlos Adames.
That in terms of X's and O's, Carlos is a little better, but Janibek is a better physical specimen, and that's what will separate them. That's what will make all the difference. If my suspicions prove true, and these guys end up fighting in the not-so-distant future, say on the undercard of Stevenson versus Lopez, I've still got Janibek winning the fight. Now, according to Janibek, an official announcement of something is imminent as soon as next week. I'm going to assume that's what he's talking about, because what the hell else could he be talking about?
Nobody's ass is snapping at the grass over a Lara fight.
All the backstory, all the history he has, it's not with Lara, it's with Carlos. And I'm under the impression that's who he's talking about. We'll see if I'm right.